Let's do one more problem. I hope you can read this. At t equal to 0, a particle located at the origin has a velocity of 4 meters per second in the x direction. If it has an acceleration of 3 meters per second squared in the positive y direction, what is its speed after 3 seconds? Now, we are now coming on to motion in 2 dimensions. You see, so far, before we did the lesson on vectors, we were only concerned with motion of an object in 1 dimension, either in the x direction or in the y direction. Now we are coming on to a moving object in 2 dimensions. In other words, the x position and the y position both keep changing. There is an x velocity and a y velocity, and so on. Alright, can you picture this problem? A particle is at the origin in the beginning at t equal to 0, and it has a velocity of 4 meters per second in the x direction. That means it has no velocity in the y direction. All its velocity is in the x direction. And now it has an acceleration of 3 meters per second squared in the positive y direction. You see that? So when the object comes to the origin, if the object is now at the origin, it has an x velocity, and now it also has an acceleration in the y direction. That means it will now begin to move in the y direction as well. So how will the object move? It will move horizontally in the x direction with this velocity, 4 meters per second. Is there an acceleration in the x direction? No. So the displacement in the x direction will be simply the velocity multiplied by time. This x velocity will not change. There is no acceleration in the x direction. That means the velocity will remain a constant in the x direction. But since it has an acceleration in the y direction, it will start picking up velocity in the y direction. Alright, let me see if I can illustrate that for you. Alright, now this is the origin. Alright, now at the origin, this is the object. It has a velocity of 4 meters per second in the x direction, and it has a velocity 4 meters per second in the x direction, and it has an acceleration in the y direction. Alright, let's talk about that as we move on. Okay, now this is the position of the object at the origin at t equal to 0. Is that right? Yes. And it has a velocity 4 meters per second in the x direction, and its y velocity is 0. It has an acceleration of 3 meters per second squared in the y direction. So it has an acceleration in the y direction. Since there is no acceleration in the x direction, the x velocity remains a constant. So we say Vy after 3 seconds is Vy0 plus At. Is that right? V equal to V0 plus At. So in the y direction, Vy0 initially is 0. Acceleration is 3 meters per second squared. So its velocity, y velocity, after 3 seconds will be 9 meters per second j. So after 3 seconds, when the object comes here, it has a y velocity of 9 meters per second and an x velocity of 4 meters per second. See that? So the y velocity after 3 seconds is 9 meters per second. X velocity is 4 meters per second. X velocity has not changed. Velocity after 3 seconds, therefore, is v of 3 is 4 meters per second I plus 9 meters per second j. What is the speed of the object at that time? The speed of the object is the magnitude of this velocity. What is the magnitude of this velocity? The magnitude is square root of x squared plus y squared, and that is 9.8 meters per second. Is that right? I hope you followed the way we solved the problem. The x velocity remains a constant. Y velocity, because there is an acceleration in the y direction, y velocity increases according to the equation v equal to v0 plus at. Vy equal to vy0 plus at. Initial y velocity is 0 and the y velocity at the end of 3 seconds is 9 meters per second. Well, I think we solved enough number of problems in vectors. It's a very important section, vectors and vector addition, and I want you to go through and do all these problems. Maybe watch this lecture a couple of times. Make sure that you really understand it well. You know why? In Physics 2, we will come and use all these concepts. If any one of you will come back to do Physics 2, we will use all these concepts there. Therefore, you cannot afford to miss this concept. All right, I will stop this lesson here. I will come back with the next lesson, which is actually motion in 2 dimensions. We are going to use all these concepts in the next lesson. All right, I will see you for that in a few minutes.